Good afternoon and welcome to TVM News. Today is Friday, October 12th. I'm Tatiana Tell.
And I'm Stephanie O'Malley. This week we'll tell you how a Scott Township woman is facing the U.S. Supreme Court.
We'll also cover Mike Pence's warning to China.
And we'll check in with TVM sports anchor Justin Kaharski to find out the latest in Marywood sports. Homecoming is here. Applications for the homecoming court were due today at noon. Candidates will be recognized at Marywood Madness next Thursday, and the King and Queen will be announced at the Night in Wonderland Formal. The Student Activities Crew is hosting the themed homecoming formal next Friday. A Night in Wonderland will be held at Fiorelli's in Peckville. Bus transportation will be provided, and non-Marywood students are welcome as guests. Today is the last day to buy tickets. They're on sale until 4:30 at the cost of one for $25 and two for $40.
Marywood is making it easier for Saudi Arabian students to enroll here. The university has recognized Saudi students who formerly attended schools in Canada may need help transferring to U.S. schools and has streamlined the application process. Marywood will offer these students services like on-campus housing, ESL, and tutoring, as well as a mid-semester start for their intensive English program on October 29th. In addition, there are Saudi students and international clubs to help with the transition.
Marywood's Psychological Services Center gave free mental health screenings yesterday. I was there to cover the story. The Student Counseling and Development Center held their annual depression screening for students and the public on Thursday at the McGowan Center. Licensed psychologist and clinic director Matthew Schaefer says mental illness affects every part of our lives, so it is important to take these screenings.
Depression is prevalent throughout our culture, and suicidality is an epidemic type problem. And getting screening and appropriate interventions, especially CBT-based clinical interventions, have been evidence-based to help people pull out of these depressive episodes. We're not really sure, but we know that there's an increase in the number of students that are presenting with mental health issues. Dr. Shaw, who runs the Marywood clinic here, there's been an increase in referrals this year, and that's been the trend nationally over time. And there's certainly, it seems to be above and beyond just the decreased stigma associated with mental illness. There's something culturally that's going on that seems to be very difficult for young people to cope, and especially at this time in life as we transition from being at home in that adolescent kind of space to this more adult space, more adult expectations in college. Depression screening is very important.
The event lasted from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., with many students coming to participate. The Counseling and Student Development Center also holds screenings for anxiety and eating disorders every spring. For TVM News, I'm Stephanie O'Malley.
Earlier this week, Marywood and the NEPA Aging Network Alliance co-hosted a program on addiction and the elderly. The program featured professionals who work with the elderly, explaining how addiction impacts older persons and offering resources for the community to become more aware of the opioid problem and how to keep the addiction crisis in check.
Marywood's Thanksgiving Adopt a Family program is underway. This campus ministry event lets all members of the campus community get involved in providing for a needy family at Thanksgiving. Those adopting a family will shop for food from a list, prepare a basket, and deliver it to the family. Marywood partners with United Neighborhood Centers for this project. Anyone interested can contact Sister John Michelle at extension 2413.
This week, Marywood students got to spend some quality time with furry friends. I was there to get the scoop. Students are gathered in Loughran Hall to visit some four-legged friends just like Luna here. Student Health Services sponsored a therapy dog event on Monday, October 8th in Loughran Hall. Many students gathered in the 24-hour lounge to play with some four-legged friends and de-stress from midterms. Some of the dog owners explained that the dogs must go through extensive training for them to be qualified as therapy dogs, such as learning not to eat something off the ground unless they are told to.
Do you think they waited long enough? Yeah. Okay.
Some students said that interacting with the dogs helps them to forget about the stresses of school, such as homework and upcoming tests. For TVM News, I'm Tatiana Tell.
Marywood celebrated the LGBTQ community yesterday. TVM's Carly Kaminsky joined in on the fun.
Here at Marywood-University is the first Coming Out Day in the Nazareth Student Center, where students could come and enjoy the National Coming Out Day. Students socialized over ice cream and candy and picked up rainbow stickers, pride flags, and t-shirts. Junior aviation management major Wesley Yancey said that Marywood is accepting of everyone.
How Marywood is inclusive to the LGBT community, and also it'll show people who want to come to Marywood who might be scared because Marywood is a Catholic college. It shows them that Marywood is inclusive and we take in anyone. We don't care race, sexuality, anyone can come to Marywood. So this really shows incoming freshmen like you are accepted here.
Senior business management major Madison Harm said Marywood has more events planned to celebrate the LGBT community.
So me and my shadow Bree wanted to kind of recognize our LGBTQ plus community on campus with this national holiday. We came up with the idea, and it's kind of a precursor for our drag show coming up in March, which is going to be bigger and better this year. So this is kind of the educational aspect, and then the fun is going to happen next semester.
With TVM-News, I'm Carly Kaminsky.
When we come back, we'll bring you local news, including the cancellation of the Scranton Maid Festival. Don't go anywhere.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Hi, I'm Peter, and there's nothing I love more than sharing vegetables with my friends.
Come on in! Help yourself to anything.
That's why we give our food the utmost respect it deserves. Did you know there are simple steps we can all take to help save food? You can cook it, store it, even share it. Just don't waste it. Because when it comes to food, better ache than never. To learn more, visit savethefood.com.
The newly formed Green Ridge Revitalization Committee has succeeded in getting the Scranton City Zoning Board to postpone a vote on the developer's project to convert Marywood South Campus to apartments and event space. The committee said it wants more time to review the possible negative impacts of the project, like increased traffic, and wants the zoning board to attach additional conditions to the development. The Los Angeles-based urban smart growth firm is heading the project. Company head Lance Robbins previously said delay would force him to drop the project because of the short time frame given when he agreed to purchase the property from Marywood.
A Lackawanna County woman had her day in the U.S. Supreme Court where she argued against her home township. Rosemary Nick sued Scott Township for making her open her property for public visits to a cemetery allegedly on her land. She says her property has no grave sites. The dispute started in 2012. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case in order to revisit a related 1985 decision, preventing Nick's suit from being heard in the lower federal courts. Nick said this case was not only for her property, but a battle to protect all Americans and their property rights.
Clark Summit is seeking applicants for a new tax collector. Former tax collector Kathy Drake passed away last week. Her 2019 term will be filled at the end of October when the Borough Council chooses a new tax official. Those looking to apply must be a resident of the borough for at least 1 year and a registered voter.
3 Lackawanna County judges will preside over a lawsuit brought by 3 Scranton residents. The lawsuit aims to force the county to conduct a countywide property tax reassessment. The plaintiffs maintain the county's property assessments are more than a half-century old and create an unfair tax burden to some residents. The lawsuit is still in its very early stages.
Lackawanna County's prison population is much larger than the national average, and some people think there's a better way. Local, state, and national organizations met last week to talk about the changes in the prison system, like ending mass incarceration, imposing shorter sentences, and charging parole, probation, bail, and sentencing practices. Prison and criminal justice reform groups say these changes would result in a more equitable justice system that works better. The organizations that made up the discussion included NEPA prison reform, the ACLU of Pennsylvania, and the Vera Institute of Justice.
Plains Township resident Sean Christopher O'Neill is accused of trying to pull a gun on an officer. O'Neill was stopped after speeding through an Interstate 81 construction zone. He swerved through a closed lane on the highway on his motorcycle and nearly hit a piece of equipment. The troopers who pulled him over said he smelled of alcohol and was belligerent, yelling at officers. A trooper's stun gun had no effect, and O'Neill gestured like he was pulling a gun. A PennDOT worker removed O'Neill's gun from its holster. He is being held in Lackawanna County Prison, awaiting a preliminary hearing.
A Dunmore father will serve 7 to 15 years after allowing his 11-year-old daughter to drive him home. 45-year-old Sean Hannon said he was too drunk to drive 10 miles from his home to Wayne County. Hannon, his daughter, and his 8-year-old son were all in the vehicle when it crashed into a tree in Wayne County. He was found guilty of a DUI, child endangerment, and other charges.
Police want residents to check their credit card statements after a card skimmer was found on a South Abington Valero gas station last week. Drivers have reported thousands scammed from bank accounts after using the busy gas station at 330 Northern Boulevard. Police discovered the skimmer embedded in a pump's main circuit board. Local police and federal authorities continue to investigate the scam.
Lackawanna County will take over the Scranton Made Holiday Festival after its organizers decided not to run it this year. The festival will be moved from the former Globe Store interior to the 100 block of Wyoming Avenue. County spokesman Joe Durenzio said the event will be smaller than previous years, but there will be around 50 vendors and run from December 7th through the 9th. The festival's original organizers could not find a suitable location, with the former Globe Store undergoing renovations to become the home of Lackawanna County government. They said they hope to resume running the festival next year.
That new Lackawanna County Government Center in the Globe Store is tapping into a piece of Scranton nostalgia by reopening the Charlemont restaurant. The restaurant was a Scranton institution inside the Globe, and county commissioners are looking for a convenient place for hundreds of government workers to grab lunch. The county commissioners issued a request for proposal seeking interested entrepreneurs to bid on the space. The only requirement is that it be named Charlemont.
The Dunmore Cemetery is getting spooky for Halloween. Megan Reynolds was there to check it out.
The dearly departed players held their annual Dunmore Cemetery tour to showcase the history of the area and to celebrate Halloween on October 7th. Julie Esty has been the director of the tour for 15 years.
I research it, write it, costume, and direct it, and I also portray people in it. I am the director of the Dearly Departed Players and the historian for the Dunmore Cemetery.
The Dearly Departed Players are a group of volunteer actors assembled by Esty. Kevin Burke plays 2 roles and takes pleasure in performing characters.
I'm 2 characters. Right now I'm Edgar Knox, a stunt pilot who died tragically in this area, and I'm a coal miner that died in a giant, the Trip Shaft Mine coal disaster in Scranton.
Another tour will be held this Sunday at 2 p.m. For TVM-News, I'm Megan Reynolds.
After the break, we'll bring you national news about the September unemployment rates. But first, let's take a look at the 7-day forecast.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Thanks for watching TVM News. Judge Brett Kavanaugh is now Justice Kavanaugh. President Trump's pick for the Supreme Court was confirmed by the Senate last weekend following a contentious nomination process. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford had accused Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her when both of them were high school students, a charge Kavanaugh vehemently denied. The Senate's 50-48 vote was the narrowest confirmation margin for a Supreme Court in almost 140 years. Kavanaugh took his seat on the court this week. Kavanaugh said he is now focusing solely on his career.
The Senate
An
confirmation
unusual image of
process was contentious and emotional. That process is over. My focus now is to be the best justice I can be. I take this office with gratitude and no bitterness. On the Supreme Court, I will seek to be a force for stability and unity. My goal is to be a great justice for all Americans and for all of America. I will work very hard to achieve that goal.
An unusual image of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford was on the cover of Time magazine last week. The image is an illustration of words and phrases from her testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The words are arranged to outline a photograph of Ford taking the oath before the committee. The cover was designed by San Francisco artist John Medrusi.
Students at Brooklyn College want Associate Professor Mitchell Langbert fired for a blog post saying that sexual assault was a rite of passage for young men. Langbert made the remarks in the wake of hearings into allegations of sexual assault by several women against Judge Brett Kavanaugh, who was ultimately confirmed to the Supreme Court by the Senate. Langbert said he intended his remarks as satire and apologized for the blog post. Brooklyn College Provost Ann Lopes said Langbert's remarks did not reflect the school's values, but noted the First Amendment protects even unpopular speech. Langbert says he will not resign.
Vice President Mike Pence is warning China that the United States will not stand down. Last Thursday, Pence described China as the biggest threat to the U.S. in a speech at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. In his remarks, he accused China of undermining President Trump and interfering with politics in the U.S.
There can be no doubt. China is meddling in America's democracy. As President Trump said just last week, we have, in his words, found that China has been attempting to interfere in our upcoming midterm elections. Our intelligence community says that China is targeting U.S. state and local governments and officials to exploit any divisions between federal and local levels on policy. It's using wedge issues like trade tariffs to advance Beijing's political influence.
Pence compared China's interference to the Russian attempts in 2016, saying what the Russians did pales in comparison to what China is doing across the country. These accusations come after a decline in military relations between the U.S. and China.
The U.S. is charging 7 Russian intelligence officers with cyber hacking. 4 of the officers were named for targeting the global chemical watchdog, known as the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. All 7 were charged with leaking Olympic athletic drug test results to undermine the efforts against Russian doping. Officials say attempted hacks on a UK chemical weapon facility, the UK's Foreign Office, and a nuclear power company in Pittsburgh all failed. The indictments of the 7 by a Pennsylvania grand jury were not related to U.S. elections, but the tactics used were said to be similar to the ones used to leak Democratic Party emails in 2016.
In economic news, the September unemployment rate fell to 3.7%. This is the lowest it's been since December 1969. Professional and business services are the economy's strongest component, adding 560,000 jobs. Healthcare, transportation, and manufacturing sector are also strong. The National Association of Manufacturers attribute the growth in its sector to regulatory rollbacks and tax cuts put into place in 2017.
The largest U.S. bed store will file for bankruptcy and reduce its number of stores. Mattress Firm plans to close 200 stores immediately as part of a plan to get out of about 700 underperforming leases. Mattress Firm has over 3,000 stores, some in locations that cut into sales from its own nearby stores. That overexpansion has caused the company to suffer financial problems, and Mattress Firm faces adding competition from online retailers like Amazon and Casper. The 32-year-old company plans to remain in business.
Rap mogul Marion Suge Knight has been sentenced to 28 years in prison for the 2015 voluntary manslaughter of Terry Carter. Knight was working on the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton when his longtime feud with Claiborne Sloan turned fatal. In video evidence, Knight backed his vehicle into Sloan and then drove it forward into Carter, who later died from his injuries. Knight's lawyers said it was an act of self-defense but pleaded no contest to the manslaughter charges.
Over 6.5 million pounds of ground beef from an Arizona-based company have been recalled after an outbreak of 57 salmonella cases in 16 states. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food and Safety and Inspection Service says JBS Tolson packaged the raw beef from July 26th to September 6th and were sold nationwide under a variety of brand names. The Agriculture Department says people reported becoming sick after eating meat between August 5th and September 6th.
Former South Korean President Lee Myung-bak was convicted in corruption scandal last week. Lee was sentenced to 15 years in prison after Seoul Central District Court found him guilty of embezzling 24.6 billion won, or $21.7 million, from a company he owned, taking bribes and causing losses. The court fined him 13 billion won, or $11.5 million, saying he embezzled before and during his presidency, which ended in 2013. Lee has 1 week to appeal.
India is spending $5 billion to buy Russian air defense systems. The deal became official last week when Russian President Vladimir Putin visited the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss the country's space exploration, nuclear energy, and trade. India has asked the U.S. not to impose sanctions on their country under a congressional act that punishes Russia for its annexing the Crimea and allegedly interfering in the 2016 presidential election. The Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act imposes a ban on transactions in dollars with Russia. The purchase will likely strain relations between India and the U.S.
Up next, we'll check in with TVM sports anchor Justin Kaharski to find out the latest happening in Marywood sports.
Planning the right amount of food is hard. The Guestimator makes it easy. Just tell it who's coming and what's for dinner. Then it tells you how much to make. And yes, it even plans for leftovers. Try it at SaveTheFood.com.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help. And slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to TVM News. Let's check in with TVM sports anchor Justin Kaharski for Marywood Sports. So Justin, what's happening in sports this week?
Well, Tatiana, men's and women's cross country is coming off a busy week.
Well, that's good. Let's hear more about it.
Both women's and men's cross country continue getting ready for the NCAA Mid-East regions. The Pacer women finished 10th out of 25 teams at the DeSales University course last weekend. Freshman Katie Shea led the team, finishing in 68th place with a time of 22:50. Ashley Clark took 70th place, just 5 seconds behind Shea, while junior Katie Bennett finished with 27:09 and sophomore Nicole Welsh completed her first race with a time of 27:44. The team competes again tomorrow at Marywood-University. In men's cross country, the team placed 12th out of 25 teams at DeSales. Sophomore David Haynes and senior Chris Gomboleski competed in tandem, finishing 1 second apart. Haynes clocked in at 27.07 for 31st place, while Gomboleski took 32nd. The team will join the women's contingent at Marywood-University tomorrow. Women's rugby took to the field for its first ever game, losing a sevens match 31-22 to Drexel last weekend. After the halftime break, junior Gabrielle Tutoni scored the first ever try in Pacer women's rugby, and freshman Kira Sharkey scored 3 times before full time. The Lady Pacers are on the road tomorrow to face the College of New Jersey. Men's rugby lost a non-conference game to the Loyola University B-side squad 50-17 last weekend. Loyola opened the scoring in the 12th minute, but Marywood responded with a try of its own by Mike Sinamilla. The conversion kick was missed, and Loyola put up 5 tries and 3 conversions to bring the halftime score to 24-5. In the second half, Braden Burrier's try was followed by Sinamilla's conversion to narrow the score to 36-12. The Pacers' Caleb Farrell had the last team try. The team's opening home match is October 20th at 1 p.m. against St. Joseph's Seaside. Men's tennis ended the season with a loss to Lycoming College this week. The Pacers were outscored 5-1 as Lycoming picked up their first win of the fall, moving their record to 1-4. Marywood's only point came from Gerard Palmer in an overtime match against Nick Meek. Palmer won the tiebreaker 10-5. Marywood's men's tennis team will return next April. Both women's and men's soccer face Cabrini University this week. The Lady Pacers came out victorious over Cabrini 2-1, allowing them to remain perfect in the Atlantic East Conference. They won their 5th straight game when Megan Swazicki hit the game winner off a long pass from Natalia Colasurdo. The women head out to Delaware tomorrow night to take on Wesley College Dover. As for the men, they dropped a tough shutout loss to Cabrini at home this week on a single penalty kick and a 1-0 loss. The Pacers remain at home to face Wesley College tomorrow afternoon. Women's volleyball celebrated their first Atlantic East Conference win, beating Immaculata University 3-1. The Pacers lost the first set to the Mighty Macs, but took over the game by winning the next 3. Sam Compton and Gabriela Santos tied for a team-high 10 kills, while Perry Sheeran led the scoring with 16 points. Jordan Vossler led the defense with 18 digs. The Lady Pacers play at home tomorrow afternoon against Marymount University. Marywood picked up its first Atlantic East Conference field hockey win by shutting out Immaculata 2-0 Wednesday afternoon. Lindsey Quinn and Jada Marks recorded the Pacer goals, both offices from Heather Forbes. Carrie Mounts earned her first solo shutout by turning away 7 shots. The Pacers are now 8-4 overall and will host Newman tomorrow. The Major League Baseball playoffs have reached the league championships. Tonight, the Los Angeles Dodgers face the Milwaukee Brewers in the first game of the best-of-7 National League Championship Series, while the Houston Astros and Boston Red Sox meet tomorrow night for the opener of the American League Championship Series. The World Series starts October 23rd in the American League champion home field. The National Hockey League is just underway, and a handful of games puts the Carolina Hurricanes and Toronto Maple Leafs at the head of the Metropolitan and Atlantic divisions of the Eastern Conference, respectively. In the Western Conference, the Chicago Blackhawks have the early Central Division lead, while the Anaheim Ducks are the best in the Pacific Division. That's all for sports this week. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Justin. An Ohio man has an interesting driving partner. Corey Morris regularly drives around with an 800-pound cow in his back seat. Her name is Annie, and she has been his companion since her mother rejected her at birth. Morris said he opens the door and Annie climbs right in. She now has a Facebook page called Annie the Highway Cow. The page documents her rides around the area.
Well, I bet he gets a lot of funny looks when they drive by.
Yeah, I bet. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of TVM News. From all of us at TV-Marywood, thanks for tuning in.
Be sure to follow TV-Marywood's YouTube page and like the TVM Facebook page to stay up to date on the latest happenings and to watch additional content. I'm Stephanie O'Malley.
And I'm Tatiana Tell. See you next week.